Hello, my name is Annie Carney with Bell Laboratories. Today we're going to talk about rodent pest management and IPM. I am the West Central Senior Technical Representative for Bell Laboratories. If you would like to scan the QR code, this is my contact information. You are welcome to give me a call, send me an email at any time. I am a mom. These are my two kids, and I love what I do, and I love talking about rodents. So why is rodent control important? Rodents truly marry disease and damage. Here are some headlines from the last few years. Surge in rodent infestation blamed on new poison rules. Chicago neighborhoods overrun by rats. Video shows rats inside of LA City Hall amid typhus outbreak that may force removal of the government's hub's carpets. California sees a resurgence of medieval diseases. Rodents truly elevate disease into the human population. Hantavirus is one of those main diseases that we're going to talk about today. We're also going to talk about foodborne illness, typha, asthma, LCMV. A study done by the Johns Hopkins and the National Cooperative of the Inner-City Asthma Study Group confirmed that mouse allergens can cause life-threatening or fatal reactions in people. There's a big push right now in the IPM community to talk about IPM in schools and drop ceilings. Mice love drop ceilings. They can run along that nice uninterrupted space and urinate and defecate, and that all that dust from that will drop down onto the student's desk, causing allergic reactions. Diseases are spread by breathing in the dust that is contaminated with rodent urine or droppings, direct contact with the rodent or urine or droppings, bite wounds. This does not happen frequently. I've only ever seen it happen 1 or 2 times, and I've been doing rodent work for about 10 years. Eating or drinking contaminated food or water. Rodents are a great host. When they're alive, they hold many mites and ticks and fleas, and those are going to slough off when they're dead. So it's really important to also be careful when we're handling infected animal carcasses after they are deceased. Through a vector such as a flea or tick, rodents are an elevator, so they're going to elevate disease into the human population. So that flea or tick is going to bite the rodent and then come and bite you or your dog, etc. It's really important to make sure we're wearing gloves when we're picking up dead animals or handling bait stations or any type of bait. Bait is expensive, so make sure that you're taking care of it, as rodents smell down into parts per million. Wear a respirator when you're in a dry or a poor ventilated area or crawl spaces. Disinfect by sweeping or vacuuming up the droppings. Be certain to wet the area first with a commercial disinfectant. And if you want more information on this, the CDC has great resources. Damage. Rodent burrows collapse floor foundations. They cause settling in the roads. They damage municipal sewer systems, crops, railroads, ditches, levees, etc. Rodents are one of the main causes of unknown caused fires. So 20 to 25% of fires that have an unknown cause is started by a rodent chewing through electrical wire or a gas line. This was really cool. This was underneath the city of Chicago, and this rodent had chewed on this electrical panel and basically fried himself almost solid. In the US, the economic damage is at $19 billion a year, which is many times greater than any other invasive animal species. It's really hard for us to get a good estimate on mouse damage, as this is only a rat damage number, because there's a different threshold for mice. Some people in rural communities are okay and are used to mice coming into their homes, whereas in other communities, such as cities and places like that, most people are not accustomed to having a mouse in the house. So it's harder for us to get a true damage count on mice. It's been estimated that 1/5 to 1/3 of the world's food supply never reaches the table due to rodents. That's enough to feed up quite a few countries. Follow the signs for your rodents and you'll probably find them easily. Rodent control technology. We're going to focus on rodenticides for the next few minutes. Our research has proven that some wild Norway rats within their colonies have a total disregard for anything within their foraging range that is unfamiliar to them when all else is working in their favor. So what's this statement say in kind of some academic language? Basically, that we could put out as many rodent boxes as we want. And if everything else in that environment is working for those rats, they have no reason to interact with the bait boxes that we place out. So it is our job to make sure that we change their habitat that forces them to enter our bait boxes, such as sanitation, cleaning up the other food sources, and cleaning up water sources, especially for Norway rats. Lethal dose levels. The first column of this chart is going to give you all of your active ingredients. So you've got brodifacoum, bromadiolone, bromethylene, cholecalciferol, diphenochrome, diphenthothiolone, diphacinone, and zinc phosphide. The next column is going to be the pretty marketing names on all of your buckets, the active content, and then the the third and fourth columns are the ones I really would like you guys to look at. That's useful bait consumption for rats and useful bait consumption for mice. So how much of that bait block does one single rat need to eat to get that lethal dose? And then the very last column is also key to remember when we're talking to our customers based on what bait we're using. Rodent control is not Amazon. We live in an Amazon society. Everybody wants everything done in 2 days or less. Rodent control is not that, especially with rats. It's really key that we make sure we communicate that with our customers, because if we go into an account on day one, it could take the next 5 days for those rats to even interact with the bait box. And then say you're using a product such as brodifacoum, it could take an additional 4 days for those rodents to die. Now we're on day 10. If we have not effectively communicated that with our customer, chances are we're at a callback on day 3 or 4, and we haven't even given our tools time to work. There are many types of rodenticides. Chronic rodenticides are going to be your anticoagulants. There's first generation and then second generation anticoagulants. Acute rodenticides, which are going to be metabolic inhibitors. Anticoagulants, a little bit of a history on them. In 1933, a farmer mentioned to a scientist friend that his cows were dying after eating spoil-free. Madison, Wisconsin, led to the discovery and patent substance of warfarin in 1991. There's 2 generations. The first generation is more rapidly metabolized. An example of that is warfarin. That second generation is to overcome some warfarin resistance. Those are going to be a bromadiolone-based product. Anticoagulants kill by preventing blood from clotting, meaning formerly slight hemorrhages can now kill. These are the most widely used products in rodent control, and people are prescribed blood thinners, anticoagulants as blood thinners. They do have a slow onset of symptoms, which can prevent some bait shyness. Vitamin K1 is going to serve as an antidote. There are some tall tales out there that dog food holds enough vitamin K1 in it to serve as an antidote. It does not. Please make sure you know on your bait buckets where the poison control number is, as well as where the note to vet is on your rodent control buckets. Acute rodenticides. They are very fast acting. They're going to interfere with the metabolic processes in the body, causing organ failure. Bromethylene is an acute product. It prevents water removal from the brain and the spinal cord, causing the tissues to swell. It has a very quick onset of symptoms. Most of these products do hold a stop feed in them, so rodents can die in as little as 2 days. There's no direct antidote available, but antidotes and treatment are inherently different, and there is treatment available. So with treatment, you are treating the symptoms of the poisoning rather than antidoting the poison itself. The nervous system is going to be the major target of bromethylene-based products. Zinc phosphide. Zinc phosphide is converted to phosphine gas in the stomach of the rodent. It's a gas buildup that causes hyperactivity, agitation, followed by lethargy. This is from a decrease in energy production, causing cellular oxidative stress. Zinc phosphide can kill rodents in as little as 24 hours. Vitamin D3, cholecalciferol. This is a great choice if you're baiting around birds. It increases the blood content, and it works on the small intestines, the kidneys, and the bones. Rodents will die in as little as 3 to 5 days from renal and cardiac failure, sometimes within 12 to 36 hours. Rats are especially susceptible to this, and just like there is no antidote for bromadiolone. There are treatments available for cholecalciferol if a non-target were to get into this. Non-target exposure is preventable. Make sure that you're using bait stations properly. If their locking mechanism is broke, if that hinge is broke, they're easily openable. They are not a secure station. So please make sure your stations are weighted or secured properly per your state laws and regulations. Make sure you know where your note to physician is on all of your products in your truck. There are symptoms of anticoagulant poisoning. Those are going to look like lethargy, bruising of the abdomen, and bleeding from the orifices. There's also going to be a note to vet on all of your buckets. Anticoagulant treatment is to administer vitamin K1, not dog food. So primary poisoning, when we're talking in the industry, is going to be the result of an animal directly consuming enough of a rodenticide to get that lethal dose. Secondary poisoning is the result of an animal indirectly consuming an animal who has consumed the rodenticide. There's some really cool things out there being studied. I encourage you to go look at those. The life of second generation tissue in the tissues, how that translates to secondary poisoning, and things of that nature. So some very cool things are coming. Please know and secure the products that you are using properly due to the enhanced legislative climate that we are currently in with rodenticides. The European Union does have a ban on some rodenticides. California AB 1788 was passed in 2020, which is a partial ban on second generation anticoagulants with several exemptions, but agricultural use is exempt. British Columbia, Canada, in August of 2022 was a complete ban on all rodenticides for the entirety of British Columbia, and several other states are reviewing these bills and bans for templates and other justifications. Translocation. It's really important that with mice, we think about translocation of bait. Mice can store up to half their body weight in their cheeks. Sometimes I think my toddlers can do this too, and then they just spit it everywhere. Mice do the same thing. So it's really important that we bait with proper techniques. So what they do is they pack up that bait in their cheeks, they take it and they spread it around your account. A lot of times we find that they're doing this with soft bait too, because they like to pull that paper off. So some key things when we're using a soft and mice with mice, let's really, when we pull the sachet out of the bucket, kind of push that Play-Doh-y substance against the sachet and then stick it on the skewer in the bait station, and make sure that we're cleaning up any of this translocated bait when we're at our account so that a non-target does not get into it. It is really important that we have a full program when you're doing rodenticides and remembering that not just bait will take care of an entire account. Most baiting is done outdoors, but in certain accounts and situations, we can bait indoors. So some baiting strategies. Place your products where you see the rodents. It's noted that only about 20 to 25% of the products for rodents that we put out are actually interacted with. So it's really important that we clean up all available food sources and make our bait the best food source available for them and make it very attractive. So if you have trash and restaurant debris and leftover food very easily accessible to these rodents, they're probably not going to interact with the tools that you put out. Make sure that you're using the right tools for the job. The appropriate bait station, whether it be mice or rats. Sometimes mice will not interact into a nice rat station because that mouse is smaller. They are looking for that smaller entry point. Make sure that we're using the correct active and make sure that we're using enough tools to get the job fully done. Outdoor baiting within 100 foot of a man-made structure on your perimeter. Your second line of defense is going to be your building exterior. And then your third line of defense is if you have any burrows for rats on that property to take care of those. When we're burrow baiting for Norway rats, who will typically nest in burrows, if you are dealing with roof rats, they are going to act differently and behave differently. The key to identifying and making sure that we are identifying what we're going up against properly at our account is to make sure that if that tail of the roof rat comes past its nose, it's going to be a roof rat. If it comes to its nose, to its forehead, you're probably looking at a Norway rat. So those Norway rats are going to nest in burrows in the ground, And rat burrows typically have one main entrance that's used most frequently, along with 2 or 3 escape holes. They're pretty smart. They're building themselves fire escapes. Norway rats will typically burrow, and roof rats will typically nest up high in those attics, palm trees, and in between walls. Roof rats will also nest in burrows in some cases, but mostly we're looking at Norway rats and burrows. The correct baiting of rat burrows is important for 3 reasons. It maximizes safety to people, pets, and non-target wildlife. It maximizes the eradication of the rats living within the burrows, and it allows for an accurate follow-up and monitoring of that burrow system long-term. So burrows should be baited with bulk-style pellets using a long-handed soup ladle, a salad serving spoon, or the hose and funnel technique. Remember, you must bait a minimum of 6 inches down in that burrow hole. Do not bait with soft bait blocks or place packs, please. So how do we get a good estimate of how many rats and how much bait we need to use? Make sure we count all of our active holes and the boat holes. So divide that by 3 because they built themselves the fire escape. Multiply by 8 because you can have up to 8 rodents living in one burrow. And that's going to give you about how many rodents you're dealing with in those burrows. If it's really dirty and there's readily available food, go ahead and add 20%. If it's an area that's fairly tidy and food is not readily available, subtract 20%. For the hose and funnel technique, a plastic funnel can be attached to a 3-foot section of garden hose. 3/4 of an inch in diameter is going to be good, or even a little larger, to prevent good pellet flow down into the burrows. The distance between each placement varies depending upon the severity of the infestation and whether it's preventative or a corrective strategy. So indoor baiting, which is also available, you could do quicker knockdown. The adults may develop a learned avoidance to some of the traps we use. The disadvantages is that bait can be placed where it is more accessible to non-targets to get to. And then insects related to the decomposing rodents once they die, flies, maggots, etc., are then in your account. It is a total misnomer that rodents go outside after eating the bait to find water and die. So pulse baiting, if you're in a situation where you're not sure what kind of situation you're dealing with or what kind of rodents you're dealing with, or even if they're there at all, pulse baiting is a great tool. So pulse baiting is the use of a non-active monitoring device to diagnose activities in the bait stations. So you would put your bait stations out, use a block with no active ingredient in it, and then watch for activity on that bait. Once you have activity proven, go ahead and switch out your non-active bait to an active bait. Why are we using bait? Bait provides a fresh and palatable alternative to the food source or to the human or pet food sources that rodents are currently consuming. When do we change bait? That is always a standard question. Bait change is going to be dependent upon the environment that you're putting the bait in. Make sure that your bait is fresh and consistent. A lot of times we do have insect deterioration of bait. Make sure that in a normal environment where it's not super humid, not super hot, that you're changing it when it doesn't look appealing to the rodent. And you can tell that there's no rodent continuing to feed on it. So replace the bait every time the account is serviced if you need to. Pre-baiting, especially on snap traps and with rats, is going to be key. Rats are neophobic. They do not like anything new in their environment, and it can take them up to 3 to 7 days to truly interact with a product that we put out. So it's really key with Norway rats that we pre-bait our snap traps. Most of your snap traps on the market are made to look the same set versus unset with the mouth opening. So we recommend putting the mouth opening against the wall so that it is a tunnel-like area for those rodents to go through. And then once they're used to it being in their environment, go ahead and open it with the mouth towards the wall using the same baiting strategy you were when you had it unbaited. If you are trying to get that elusive female, try using nesting material. A lot of times pregnant females will go for nesting material over food. So cotton balls, string tied to the trigger, dental floss, Christmas tinsel, things of that nature. Pre-baiting, you can use Detex, Provoke, cotton balls. There's all kinds of things on the market that you can use, especially I've had a lot of people tell me recently they're having great luck with Slim Jims and high protein products of that nature. Technician tip, clip those pre-baited stations to your uniform when you're climbing a ladder. It allows you to carry more traps safely, as well as to take care of yourself and keep 2 hands on the ladder at all times. Technicians in our industry are the first line of public health defense in our country. Please make sure you're taking care of yourself. Snap traps are great. They're super fun. Snap traps provide a really good body count. So we know what our infestation is doing. We know that those numbers are coming down, and we can prove that we're doing our job because we have a strong body count. Most of your snap traps now on the market can be secured and set upside down, sideways, anywhere. Put them where the rodents are running. Follow your rodent signs, the sebum, the urine tracks. Follow those and really place those snap traps where those are. So secured a snap trap here on that run. You can see the sebum coming up the pipe. Secure that trap and catch them while they're running. Place them end to end in case your rodents start jumping over them. Secure them vertically or horizontally in the rafters. For severe mouse infestation, traps should be placed closer together. Mice aren't as neophobic as rats. They're more curious. So they're going to kind of go and find the food that they're looking for. Use snap traps in pairs. Some mice react to new objects by jumping. If you double that trap, you're going to help secure those jumpy mice. I really like for mice to go ahead and take a 2x4 and put a bunch on there so that they're just interacting with them as a whole. An area where there are many food sources, bait the traps with nesting materials. Cotton balls, toothpicks is another great one. For a professional look, you can always place those traps inside of a tamper-resistant bait station. Pre-bait for mice, just like you would for rats. Let them get used to those tools being in their environment. In January of 2016, Dr. Matt Fry of Cornell University discussed a mouse snap trap research study that suggested for optimum performance, 6 snap traps per every mouse intended to catch. It's quite a few, but Bobby Corrigan also talks about how we should always be placing those snap traps underneath the sink, the stove, and the refrigerator in that nice efficiency triangle of the kitchen where we're most likely in a residential account dropping food. Make sure we move those snap traps every visit. Leave gaps, but gaps that are not evenly spaced. Rodents are creatures of habit, and just like humans run hurdles with the run, run, jump pattern, mice will do the same. They get into a nice pattern. Use them pairs or end to end. You can always use your tools mixed together. So with glue boards, you can place them on pipes, racking, etc. Using those snap traps, you can intermingle them. We call this an Oreo or reverse Oreo with glue boards. Use the traps that have caught others. Do not clean your snap traps. Rodent pheromones smell great to other rodents. It's how they communicate. With traps, glue and or snap, do not place them in a corner. We do not run headfirst into a corner, an inside corner. We slow down before we get there. Rodents are doing the same. And with those vibrissae, they're going to feel that glue and back themselves out, which is why we're never going to use glue in a corner. Use these tools on the run and on the straight parts where we know that they're going fast and we know that they're going to interact with them. Identify those active runways and place your mechanical traps in the dark areas along those walls and behind objects. Ideal placement in commercial facility is going to be along both the sides of the interior and the exterior doorways. For fast and even easy servicing, use a glue board in conjunction with a mechanical trap. There was a study done, and I would love to find it and send it to you all, a few years ago by a glue board company that the rodents, when they died inside of a multi-catch trap, the glue board caught about 85% of the pathogens, fleas, ticks, and mites that came off of that rodent's body. So then they're on the glue board rather than being inside of your account. Rodent pheromones on or around traps are going to attract other rodents to those traps. Types of glue boards, there's all kinds of types of glue boards on the market. Use what works for you in the environment that you're working in. A lot of times with glue boards, our success is limited to juveniles. They're vibrissae or shorter, so they don't feel that glue as early. Just like a kid, they open the front door and they don't look both ways before they cross the street. Juvenile rodents are going to run into that glue board just like sometimes children run into the street. Whereas adults, they feel the glue, they back themselves out. Adult humans, we look both ways before we cross the street. It can be impacted by environment, so dust makes glue boards kind of ineffective. The other thing that is really key to remember with glue boards is that we should not place highly oiled products on top of the glue boards. So never put peanut butter, cheese, chocolate on top of those glue boards, because that oil is going to come off of those food products and coat the top of the glue board, making it pretty ineffective. So a great way, if we accidentally, take the glue off or take the paper off of our glue board and flip that glue board over onto something that we don't want it to be on, is to keep a little can of Pam in your truck and just spray that, and the oil will peel that right off. Glue boards can be used just about anywhere. Make sure you're keeping them free of dust, debris, and moisture. Make sure you're using them in tight spaces to create a natural funnel for your rodents to interact with the glue boards. The idea is for the rodent to hit the glue board on the run. So make sure your glue board has good placement along with your glue trays. Generally, parallel is going to work better. There's things on the market that allow you to cover them in a dusty environment to create that nice tunnel. When you're using multi-catch traps, make sure that they are placed in the proper locations and that they're documented per your account properly. Generally, interior rodent work is going to go hand in hand with exclusion. If we keep rodents on the outside of an account, it's much easier to manage the inside of an account. So there's all kinds of door sweeps on the market. There's excluder door sweeps. There's all kinds of excluder products. Make sure that we're always looking at the astragal, so the space between double doors, the entry point underneath of doors, and any other entry point into our facility. All kinds of tools on the market to help you take care of your exclusion work. Inspections. What is the importance of an inspection with rodents? The key thing with an inspection is to make sure that we are communicating clearly. Rodent work is not Amazon and takes more than one visit. So make sure you're charging properly for that. It sets the customer expectation. It eliminates and talks about the current pest problem, and it shows commitment to the prevention of future pest problems. A good inspection will increase a company's overall profitability. So what are some of the goals? Make sure that you're investing all the time needed into that initial inspection for rodents, identifying the key factors to solving or preventing a rodent problem, educate the customer during the inspection if you can, and communicate that with the customer to establish clear needs from them and set realistic expectations. When we say set realistic expectations, we mean a couple things. We're never going to get a full hold on a rodent control problem if a consumer continues to prop open the back door of a restaurant with a bag of trash. We need to make sure we communicate that clearly. We all carry cameras in our pockets now on our phone. Make sure that everybody's documenting everything so it never turns into a he said, she said situation with a customer. So some things I would like you to ask and think about. Is this your first call to a PMP? You all are licensed and caring individuals. There are people out there who are using pest control as a way to a living, but they're not doing it properly. So make sure that if this is not their first call to a PMP, that you check how the previous PMP did the job. Why are you calling? Make sure you're talking to the person who understands the issue thoroughly. Have you used any over-the-counter rodenticides? And if so, where have they been placed? Over-the-counter rodenticides are great. They do have a place. Make sure, however, that once they have signed a contract with you for the rodent control work, that we pick these products up if they are improperly used. Do you have children or pets? Make sure that you're using tools that are tier 1 rated so that pets and children cannot get into them. Any changes to the property or surrounding properties? This is always a great question to ask, even if it's not entirely visible. So a lot of times when we have new neighborhoods going in next to a established neighborhood, all that digging of the dirt and the field is going to push the rodents that were living in that field very comfortably. They're going to push them into the front line of that established neighborhood. Pipes where they enter structure that's sealed. Is that sealed? Branches that overlap or touch buildings, especially if you're dealing with roof rats. Gaps, do not ever seal a weep hole. This is a picture of a weep hole. Do not seal those. Make sure we're always using our pinky thumb rule during an inspection. A rat can enter a hole the size of your thumb, and a mouse can enter a hole the size of your pinky. Basically, if their little skull can fit through, the rest of their body just accordions down and slides through after them. Any abutting water sources or vegetation, any new construction, where are the sanitation issues, especially at our commercial accounts? So what's the proximity between the giant dumpster behind a restaurant and the back restaurant door? Follow the droppings in the sebum, and where are those signs? That's going to be where we're going to want to use our tools. Door sweeps, if they're properly installed, and if they're getting into a food source, how can we keep them out? And make sure we're always asking where the customer is seeing the rodents. So some inspection tools that are key to use. A great one that I like using is a metal ruler. It really allows you to scrape the sebum or cut the fecal matter to see if it's new or old. So when we're identifying activity in an account, let's follow the signs. So we're going to start with sebum. Sebum is that oil that comes off of rodents. We have sebum too. It's when your hair gets greasy, your face gets oily. They're the rub marks that rodents leave behind. A lot of times, if you look really closely, you can see the direction the rodents are traveling. These marks come from that grease on the fur. And if the rub marks smear with that metal ruler, you're going to know that they're fresh. If they don't smear as easily, they're going to be a little older. Find the fresh ones. So here are some examples we've got going. You can see when this rodent's running where its tail is really following him. Urine examples. So rodents are constantly dropping micro droplets of urine. They're left wherever the rodents are traveling. So this is a nice example of a urine column where they're clearly traveling this very often. It's linked to health risks known to cause or worsen asthma. The dust from droppings and urine are what cause hantavirus. By deciding when and where to mark, mice are managing their social profiles that other mice pay attention to. Rats must constantly be gnawing or their teeth could grow to be up to 1 foot long in 2 years. However, it's a little bit of a misnomer that they must be gnawing on something else. They can gnaw on their own teeth, so kind of clicking them together, and that will keep their teeth from growing that 1/2 inch per month. So if a rodent's teeth were left to go ungnawed, they would grow around and down and back into their skull. It's pretty cool to see if you can get a hold of one of those skulls. So now we're going to look at some rodent identification. We're going to look at physical attributes, eating habits, their life cycle, and rodent behavior, as well as their senses. So some physical attributes of that Norway rat we've talked about, they're going to be about 10 to 17 ounces, about 12 to 18 inches long, including their tail, those nice small black eyes. The roof rat is going to be about 5 to 9 ounces with that pointy nose, large eyes, ears, and long tail. About 10 to 17 and 7 to 10 inches for the head and the body. If that tail comes past their nose, that's a good identifying factor. So the reason for that tail being longer is that they live in a more southern climate, so it's a bit warmer, and that tail is the air conditioning system for a rodent's body. So here are some differences between those Norway rats and those roof rats. Norway rats can be about twice the size of roof rats. And look at the size and shape to determine the species at every site of their fecal matter. Those Norway rats are going to have blunt ends, as the roof rats are going to have pointed ends. Your house mouse is coming in at about 0.75 ounces. They're going to be about 6 to 7 inches, including that tail. Your meadow vole at about 1 to 2 ounces, about 6 inches, including the tail. You're going to notice that those voles are going to have a shorter tail and ears, more blunted nose. Your deer mouse, who is the main carrier of hantavirus, is going to be about 1/2 ounce to 1 ounce with those large black eyes, white feet, and that brownish underbelly, about 4 to 9 inches, including the tail. So here are all of those with some differences. So when we're looking at droppings, it's key that we also know what non-target droppings look like. So sometimes bats are confused by our customers, bat droppings. Rabbit droppings are generally not confused. Those are those nice round balls. At the bottom, you'll see here that they are compared to the size of a quarter, your squirrel, and then your lizard droppings. So the eating habits of rodents is really important that we understand, because it's going to determine if we're putting enough bait for an infestation out. So your Norway rat, your alpha, is going to average about 1 ounce to 2 ounces a day. Your omegas and betas are going to consume about 1 ounce a day. Your pregnant female, in true pregnant female fashion, is coming in eating 3 to 4 ounces of food per day. Rats have to have a water source to survive, so they need about 1 ounce of water per day. Roof rats are about the same. They also need a good water source. Your house mouse is going to eat about 4 to 8 grams of food per day, and they need 1/20th of an ounce of water per day. Now, mice can get the water that they need from their food sources. They can extract it out. Your meadow vole is going to eat about 1 to 1/5 of an ounce per day, and they need about 1/10 of an ounce of water. Deer mouse is 1/10 of an ounce of food and 1/20th of an ounce of water. Unlike rats, mice and voles can absorb their daily water requirements from the food they eat. So take that into consideration if you're working in a grocery store type account, and consider what carousels your mice are under. And if they're under those fruits and veggies, they're probably not looking for a water source. So it's going to be important that we clean up the food source first. Your life cycle of the rodents. Rodents are very, very quick to reproduce. So they reach sexual maturity in about 2 to 3 months. Their gestation period is only 22 days, and their offspring per litter is about 6 to 12. Roof rat is about the same, with 6 to 8 offspring per litter. And you're going to notice that their lifespans, and they're pretty mirrored to each other. Your house mouse is reaching sexual maturity in about 4 to 6 weeks. Their gestation period is 19 days, with an offspring of 5 to 6 per litter. Your meadow vole is reaching sexual maturity in 1 month, and they're having 3 to 10 offspring per litter. Your deer mouse is doing 6 to 8 weeks, with 3 to 5 offspring per litter. So you're going to notice that the meadow vole is going to have far more litters per year, with about 1 litter every month. And this is because they're not a commensal rodent, so they don't readily live in homes with humans. So they're having more litters per year because, quite frankly, they're just dying quicker outside. Behavioral tendencies. Most of your rodents are going to be most active at night. With rats, they're going to nest in those burrows, and they're only going to be about 90 to 450 foot from the water and food source. So really find that triangle between nest, water, and food, and put your tools inside of that triangle. They cause damage indoor and outdoor. They're very, very fearful of new objects. Inside of their colony, they're going to have a very distinct hierarchy, and they're basically Spider-Man. All of the rodents, they can climb brick face walls, they're climbing downspouts, they can climb and get in just about anywhere they want to. So your Norway rat is going to be very, very common all across the United States. Make sure we're using sanitation. It's going to be a key component in dealing with Norway rats. The other thing I would like to point out, as our industry is under some outside pressure, please make sure that we understand that there are people who have these as pets. There are people who think that these are very cute, and until it is truly affecting their life, they are not an issue. So let's make sure that if we are catching rodents in multi-catch snap traps, or having them leave the account dead, that we are doing it in an opaque bag. So a bag that is not see-through, a bucket that's not see-through. We just want to make sure that nobody can ever catch us, since we all carry cameras in our pocket on their phone. That way we don't end up in the news. This is a really great photo. It shows nice vibrissae on that adult rat. Here he is popping out of a burrow. Note that he has no reason to interact with that bait station. So we need to change the tools that we're using. So rodent senses are really important to understand. I think they're super cool. The touch is my favorite. It's interesting. These vibrissae are basically going to create pictures in the rodent's mind. They have terrible eyesight. So they're most prominent on the face. They're located throughout the whole body. It's what paints that 3D picture in the brain of what their world looks like. So juveniles are going to have shorter vibrissae. That's why we do better catching them on glue. But it really just feels their outside world for them. They can sense your distance almost 100 foot away, those vibrations. Smell, they have excellent sense of smell. That's why it's really, really important we are careful about how we store and handle our bait, and we make sure that we are using our gloves. Pheromones are going to communicate the colony and the colony status, their reproductive status. If you see droppings on a corner like this, droppings here and droppings here, that's going to signal to their friends that that's a really safe corner to run around. Or on an interior corner, a lot of times you'll find the rodents will back themselves in, urinate and defecate, and that way they're telling their friends that this is a nice safe spot to back yourself into as well. Taste. This is a quality check for rodents. They can taste up to 250 parts per million, depending upon the substance. Newborns are going to taste their mother's diet through her milk and prefer those foods. Fresh bait is generally going to be best. Just like you or I do not go into the fridge and we eat the healthy leftovers that our spouse cooked, 3 weeks ago. We go in and we eat the pizza from last night that we know is going to taste good. Rats and mice are doing the same thing. They're looking for the freshest, most tasty food they can find. Kinesthetic. This is like a sense that the rodents have that's really cool. They develop a muscle memory. It's a kinetic sense that allows them to remember turns, the route, and the course movement. So you can put a rodent in a maze, and the next time he goes through, he'll find his way without making a wrong turn. It's a memorization of muscle movements inside their environment. So I like to equivalent it to, every time you swing a golf club off the tee box, most people swing it, or I hear you're supposed to swing it the same way every time. Or when a sprinter runs, it's that run, run, jump pattern, run, run, jump pattern. Catch the rodents where they're running. This kinetic sense is so inherent to them that if we can make our tools part of that kinetic sense, we're going to have a much higher success rate. So when we're conducting proper rodent control, make sure you're doing a full inspection, exclusion, and using all of the technologies on the market. So, dear customer, exclusion materials and efforts are bar none the most long-term and cost-effective we at XYZ Pest Control can sell you. And for any baiting services that you purchase from us, their effectiveness depends upon the removal of as much refuse food as possible. The most important line on any of our rodenticides label is to please remove all alternative food sources for best results. So, thank you. I hope you learned something today. Please, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. Heritage will get them to me and we will get you answered as quickly as possible. My name is Annie Carney. I'm the West Central Territory Rep. I cover Missouri, Kansas, Colorado, Arkansas, Nebraska, New Mexico. We do have a full team here at Bell Labs to service any of the rodent product needs you have. We have a great team across the country. That will be the last slide that's going to hang. Feel free to take a picture of your rep's information, or if you need their information, you're always welcome to reach out to me and I will get it to you. So thank you. I appreciate your time today. I hope you have a great day learning with Heritage.